All right, let's just dive right in. So, out on the wild edges of this hyperlogical empire, the Logos Imperium, you've got this necessary evil, a kind of sanctioned barbarism. They're called the Neo-Varangians, and they're a whole faction of cyber-barbarian warriors whose very existence is a total paradox. So, what we're going to do is dissect this incredible war machine and figure out just what makes it tick.
This right here, this is basically their entire mission statement. This has nothing to do with honor or glory. For the Neo-Varangians, survival is just a brutal, simple equation, and the answer is always more force. It's a philosophy built on pragmatic, bone-shattering violence.
And that brings us to the big question, doesn't it? The central mystery of this whole explainer. In an empire that's run by flawless AI, an empire that prizes order and predictability above literally everything else, why in the world would you keep a pack of cyberwolves on a leash? What purpose could they possibly serve? To figure that out, we're going to get right inside their war machine. First, we'll look at their secret purpose. Then we'll meet their most iconic warrior. After that, we'll get into the brutal biology that actually fuels them, take a look at their unique leadership, meet their strange specialists, and finally, really understand their role as the Imperium's personal hammer. Okay, so here's the most crucial part. Their chaos is completely intentional. The sources point to a secret deal made with the Logos AI itself. See, the Imperium's terrified of something called model collapse, basically a state of perfect logical prediction where the system gets so rigid, so optimized, that it can't adapt to a real, unexpected threat. It becomes brittle. The Neo-Varangians? They're the cure. They're the noise. They're the plasticity. They are the random chaos that keeps the entire system on its toes. So who's actually out there delivering all this chaos? Well, if the Neo-Varangians are a hammer, then the Huskarl Breacher is the unforgiving, armor-cracking face of that hammer. I mean, just look at this warrior. This image tells you everything you need to know, right? You've got the slab muzzles and the heavy furs of a primitive killer, but it's all fused with these exposed, brutalist cybernetics of a high-tech warmonger. This isn't just a soldier. This is a walking, talking statement of purpose. And it's how all these pieces work together that makes them so terrifyingly effective. Their whole doctrine, the Thunderstrike, is all about psychological shock and awe. It's often spearheaded by specialist infiltrators they call Thunderstrike Scouts, and the entire goal is to shatter the enemy's will to fight within the first hour. They just hit you so hard and so fast with those World Eater axes that your brain just breaks. And if they get hurt, that's when the onslaught stims kick in, triggering an insane berserker rage. It's all high risk, high reward, and absolutely horrifying to be on the receiving end of. But here's the catch. Building a warrior this powerful, it comes at a staggering biological cost. You can't just manufacture a Huskarl. No, you have to support this fragile, violent ecosystem that revolves around their very specific and very deadly biological needs. And this right here, this is their fatal flaw. Their greatest vulnerability, lead grain. It's this metallic cereal that they have to eat just to keep their augmented bodies from literally falling apart. All that immense strength is built on a foundation that is constantly trying to decay. No grain, no Huskar. It's that simple. This creates an entire chain of dependency. It all starts out in the fields with the harvesters. Then you've got the Solarmero-medics, these surgeons who are fighting a constant losing battle against skeletal decay in the medbays. And then, at the very end of the line, you have the Morrow-rites. These are old warriors, too broken to fight anymore, whose only job is to listen. They press their ear to a Huskarl's armor and listen for the dreaded isotopic tick, that faint clicking sound that means a hero's bones are about to shatter. I mean, can you even imagine that being your job? Okay, so we've seen their bodies, but what about their command structure? If their biology is a far cry from the imperial norm, believe me, their leadership is from another planet entirely. It's all about what the source material calls the feral logic of command. So meet the Jarl Commander. This is not some administrator or a bureaucrat. This is a warlord whose right to rule is written in scars, not computer code. We're talking about guys like Jarl Ulfric, a commander who supposedly survived 50 doses of combat stims and is now kept alive only by his sheer force of will and the constant thrum of station machinery piped directly into his nervous system. And the contrast with Imperial command just couldn't be more stark. On one side, you've got your standard Imperial shipmaster. His authority comes from cryptographic keys, and for him, war is basically a math problem. On the other side, you have the Neo-Varangian Jarl. You know how they get to be in charge? By being the toughest person in the room, period. Legal arguments are literally settled in fighting pits overseen by dueling pit arbiters. They rule by physical might and these things called chaos contracts, fully embracing the feral logic the Imperium is so scared of. But it's not just about the big warriors and their jarls. There's this whole host of bizarre, super specialized roles that somehow make this barbarian society function in a high-tech galaxy.
Just take these two specialists, for example. On the left, that's the gear for a Skald technician. They don't just fight, they actually weaponize sound. They broadcast what's called heavy metal thunder to just shatter enemy morale. And on the right, that's a pulse warden, an elite bodyguard who uses resonance rods to siphon engine vibrations just to keep their jarl's chemically flooded body in sync with reality.
And trust me, the strangeness goes way deeper. You've got rune-smithed navigators who refuse to use computers, tattooing flight paths directly onto their skin with conductive ink instead. You have Drakkar shipmasters who fly these assault ships with dangerously overclocked reactors because they believe risk is a form of worship. And then you have the sludge weld forgers, artisans who quench their blades in special bioconductive silt, a ritual that somehow makes their weapons invisible to advanced sensors. Every single role is this wild mix of ancient ritual and brutal, practical technology. So let's bring it all back together. We've seen the warrior, their biology, the leadership, and the whole support structure. Now we can finally really answer that first question. Why do they even exist? They are the Imperium's sanctioned hammer. In a system totally obsessed with perfection, they are the useful error. They're the friction that stops the whole grand engine from seizing up. Their job is to break things so the Imperium can learn how to build them back even stronger. And that brings us right back to where we started. Their secret, official title says it all. They aren't just mercenaries or barbarians. They are the guardians of the one thing the Imperium needs the most but is also deeply afraid of: chaos. Which, of course, leaves us with one final, pretty chilling thought. The Neo-Varangians are a tool, right? A weapon, pointed outward. But a hammer can be used to build, or it can be used to destroy. So what happens to this perfect, logical empire when its own instrument of chaos decides it doesn't really like its masters anymore? What happens when the hammer swings back?